So you guys are not going to believe this, but I finally got some PC parts from Bust Off, and actually I mean Hard Off, but for literally over a year I don't think I've bought anything from this place. And here we go with a CPU cooler. This is an old Thermalright Macho 120 SPM. Now you may be wondering, why'd you get a used CPU cooler? And the answer is because I'm actually got an X99 gaming PC that I'm going to be putting together because the prices are just ridiculously cheap. And this package right here actually has the 2011 mounting support. Now, one thing about a lot of new CPU coolers coming out now is that they do not have the 2011 kit to mount the cooler. So I thought getting this for around 10 USD was actually a bit of a deal. Anyhow, next PC part that we got was the RTX 2060 Super, and this is the 8GB model, the Galax, and in Japan they call it Garakuro. But the thing about this GPU is that prices have gone up, especially in Tokyo, which is worrisome because they've gone up quite a significant amount, especially since the last time I was here. Your usual RTX 3000 and 4000 series cards, even on the used market, have gone up somewhat 30 to 40%. So that leaves me in a bit of a predicament where I have to try and get some deals on other types of GPUs. And an RTX 2060 Super, being able to take advantage of that DLSS 2 with the Transformer model is actually not a bad thing. So I think perhaps RTX 2000 series could piggyback on the price hikes on the 3000 and 4000 series, and they're still not bad. I got this one for a little under 140 USD because Hard Off in Tokyo do take the tax off. And I was actually at Junk Paradise just before this, and the same RTX 2060 Super, for instance, is going about 25% more expensive than Hard Off, which is really surprising because usually Hard Off have the most expensive prices for GPUs that I've seen. I mean, just to give you a typical example of how expensive parts are, they've got a PC with no GPU in it, and I think an i7 10700K going for close to 450 USD, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or dollars for that matter, at this price. But also, when I was at Junk Paradise before I went to Hard Off in Tokyo here, the prices of CPUs were also just nowhere near worth it, where you can jump on AliExpress and just get a much better deal on the CPUs they had available, and that's shipped to your door. So before you even try to take off the tax if you're a tourist as well. But anyhow, getting these two PC parts in the backpack, it's time to go around now, have a little bit of a shop, and see what's available right after today's video sponsor.
Do you need to get Windows 10 or Windows 11 activated and don't want to spend $200 or some other exorbitant price? Well, if so, today's video sponsor VIP SCD Keys has you covered. For as little as $15 using the coupon code BFTYC, you can get Windows 10 activated, and for a little bit more you can get Windows 11 activated too. Links in the description below to find out more.
Now, I've just come out of Tsukumo EX, and this is probably one of my favorite stores in Tokyo, and this was really surprising because going in there, the shelves were a lot more bare than I'm used to seeing, and especially the GPU section. There was actually like empty shelves with no GPUs, no used GPUs. But when I was looking through there, I was actually going to get 3 graphics cards, and someone just beat me to one of the RTX 3050s on display, the 8GB models. But we managed to get ourselves, with that aside, an RTX 2070 8GB for a little under 140 USD, as well as an RTX 3050 8GB for, again, a little under 140 USD. I'll put both the yen and USD pricing for all the deals that we are getting up on the screen, and these prices are with the 10% taken off. If you're a tourist, you can get the tax off. And moving on to CPU deals, I was actually really surprised to see that there was just nothing good on the shelves in terms of value, especially when, again, just like Junk Paradise, the AliExpress CPU prices are much better. However, one thing I was really shocked to see was that the Ryzen 7 7800X3D used is now going for more than its MSRP new price. So, I don't know, it's not just GPUs that are getting bought up, it's CPUs as well, which leads me to believe that there is a massive silicon demand from the AI market or business to business market, and it's just soaking up all the silicon and leaving none for the gamers. So that's what it feels like is going on here, especially with the predecessor model coming in used more than the price of the latest generation CPU should be going for new. So wild times to be a PC gamer, but let's keep going. So we've just finished up now checking out, in total, 6 different stores, and 4 of those had used PC parts. Now, we have only managed to come out with 1 deal out of all those stores, and this is for a GTX 1070 Ti, which they're asking around $72 for it. Now, unfortunately at DOS Para there is no discounts for foreigners. They don't take the tax off or anything like that. But still, this was the only decent deal I saw on GPUs. The RTX 2070s, they were in abundance. There was a few RTX 2060s on the shelves, but nothing cheaper or even matching the prices that we previously got in the deals before that from both Hard Off and Tsukumo. However, at the 2 junk paradises, it was pretty weird to see that the CPU prices were even worse at these stores than the previous stores we checked out. And then also the graphics card prices at these other stores were again just elevated beyond those prices that I'm willing to pay, and more so if I flip it in a gaming PC, people are willing to pay in the gaming PCs. So it's looking like if these prices stay this bad for long periods of time, people are just going to not buy anything, really. That's the whole situation I'm hearing on the market. However, just before this, I did say 4 of the 6 stores we checked out were used stores. The other 2 sell new parts exclusively, and what I wanted to see here was what was exactly happening in these stores. And basically, if we look at the GPUs that are available or not available on the shelves, we can see that all the high-end GPUs are going out of stock. Even the AMD 7800 XTs and 7900 XTs, for example, they're all just off the shelves, and all we're seeing is really RTX 4060 as well as B570s and lower end GPUs on the shelves. Now, also when it comes to the CPUs, the 9800 X3D and 7800 X3D, they're also just sold out at these ridiculously high prices. So things are really looking off right now in the new market. And of course, when people can't buy things at good prices on the new market, then they're even in Japan going to turn to the used market. And so there's our prices going up right there. But what we're going to do right now is check out the final junk paradise, which I usually do come into a bit of luck with. So I've saved hopefully the best till last, and hopefully we can get some more deals outside of just a GTX 1070 Ti. And we just walked out of that final junk paradise, and there was absolutely nothing of value there, except one thing that did strike my curiosity was that they had a lot of Ryzen 7 8700Fs on the shelf, and I'm thinking to myself, well, it's unusual for that many people to buy a niche CPU and then especially trade it into junk paradise for pennies on the dollar. So perhaps junk paradise is getting these CPUs off AliExpress and then bringing them in, and they've got their own little hustle going on. That's what it would appear is going on, at least in the CPU side of things, because on a lot of these CPUs, the prices are just like pretty much percentile differences between what they are on the shelves and what you can get them on AliExpress for. And that said, I just did not pick up one CPU in Tokyo this month. Now, with Tokyo, you might be thinking, Brian, prices are going up. They're just, you're done. Like, used PC parts hunting is done. And that's where in Japan in particular, I have seen a phase where Tokyo's gone up in price, but then the countryside and outside of Tokyo has had much better deals. So what we're going to do is we are going to jet on out of here with our limited amount of deals that we've picked up so far. And then we are going to actually go parts hunting in Chiba-city outside of Tokyo and see what some of these remote stores have in terms of deals. And this is going to be a 2-day adventure here in Japan. So even though we didn't come up with the greatest deals in Tokyo this time around, there still is hope. Now we're fast forwarding to the next morning of this parts hunt, and I've got some really good news already. That is, I've tested all 4 of these graphics cards and they are all working absolutely fine, except with the exception of this GTX 1070 Ti. This is a really anemic, lightweight cooler that even when I undervolt it, the temps are still going pretty high. And so the cooler is still getting saturated with the heat, so it doesn't need a repaste. It's just that some of these GTX 1070s, they did come out with really lightweight coolers that were definitely not cutting it with the default settings. And then even when you undervolt it, they're really sort of pushing the boundaries. And another example of this would be when I got that GTX 1070 deal in Australia with all those lightweight coolers. That was another example of this, but I'm really shocked because the best GPU cooler that we've tested out of these 4 ended up coming from hard off. And I can't believe what reality I'm living in here. I got a graphics card deal from hard off, albeit not the best deal, but still absolutely not bad by these current standards with GPU prices. Now, all I had to do with this thing was give it a quick clean over, get the dust off, and the thermal paste and all the pads were actually all good to go. So this card I don't believe has seen a whole lot of use, but what we're gonna do right now is we are going to hit the road and go around my local city here and check out some of my favorite spots to see what they've got in terms of deals on the shelves. But also last night, I did manage to jump on Mercari, and this is, in Japan, it's a really popular auction site where you can check out deals on really anything. But for me, I'm looking for PC parts, and here's where I found an RTX 2080, and this was going for Nimaen, which is, again, that magic price point of around 140 USD, just a little bit under. So we got that one. It said that it's working when they pulled it out of their computer last. And now one thing about mail cutties I've noticed, there's this latest thing going around where people will just say 3N. And basically, that's the 3 no-nos. The no return, no refund, and no claim. So what they mean is once they sell this thing, they just don't want to hear from you again. So I personally wouldn't be buying some of those auctions, especially if they're saying, hey, it works, but you get it and it doesn't work at all, we don't want to hear from you. So there's sort of like no guarantee there. So you at least want a few days. If you're buying something online, you at least want a claim within a few days, which I think Mailcutty does provide that to give you a bit of time to test the product and make sure it's what the seller's saying it is. So I think that's like usually around 2 to 3 days. So that at the very least is better than having absolutely nothing so you don't get hosed. Anyhow, we've got a 2080 on the way. We've also found a 2060 Super, another one for Nimaen, pretty much the exact same deal as the hard off special there. And you may be wondering, Brian, you're starting to get a lot of RTX 2000 series deals in. And so going forward, it's looking like that's definitely the case where the RTX 3000 series, especially those 3070s, for example, they've boosted up a lot more in price, especially if we look at getting a 2080 or a 2060 Super for around 140 USD, and then 280 USD for a 3070. When it comes to a gaming budget PC, I've actually been seeing that, say, a 2070 Super doesn't go too bad in a flip with around an 800 Aussie dollar gaming PC. So that actually, I had one of those up for sale, moved very quickly. So RTX 2000 could be a good focus for PC flippers right now if you're looking to get something out on the market that's going to give people good value for money. So I'm sort of refocusing my attention now with RTX 2000 while it's really cheap compared to RTX 3000. Now also, here's the best till last with the online deals. I was just looking through CPUs, just scanning through, seeing what I can find, because so far I have come up pretty empty-handed with CPU deals, but then I stumbled on a 5960X. This is the i7, and this is 8 cores, 16 threads. Now, they're asking 4,000 yen, which was around 26 USD, and I'm like, absolutely. And they said that they've booted it to BIOS, but that's all they've done. They've just checked in the BIOS, made sure it boots up, and usually in my experience, booting up to the BIOS is 99% of the way there. in terms of having something that works, especially when it comes to a CPU. So I just said, yeah, let's get that. But then I noticed they've also got an additional 8 units. Well, they said message me for more. So I messaged them and said, how many more have you got? And they said, yeah, I got another 8 of these, so 9 in total. And if you buy the whole lot of them, I can do 120 yen off each. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I would have bought them all at 4,000 yen anyway. So we ended up getting 9 of these getting sent in the mail. They all boot to BIOS apparently. So looking forward to that deal too. So 8 cores, 16 threads, a ring bus with DDR4 support and AVX2 instruction set support. That's actually a pretty good deal. And I think depending on what we find here today, I think we could end up having a real smash hard budget gaming PC that's gonna hit your sub boxes very soon. Anyhow, let's go jump in the temporary Yes-mobile and see what deals we can pull off.
I don't wanna fight this, let it take me. Kinda wanna risk it, maybe break me. Are we capable, or unstable?
So just coming out of the first place here, called DOS Para, I ended up going through all the deals on the shelves for the used parts, and I was kind of also checking the new parts first as well. Now, with the new gaming PCs, they're actually very expensive right now. So if that's any indicator, it might look like the used prices may also start going up too. But that's when I went to the used parts section and I saw an RTX 3080 Strix that was just sitting there on the shelves that looked like it was in pretty good condition. And they're asking 55,000 yen, which is around, I think, 360 USD. And at that price, I'm thinking that's pretty good for a 3080 Strix. Keep in mind, it's the fancy looking one. Usually I'd like to get these around 300 USD or cheaper for a 3080. But all things considered, it is the Strix model and it does look nice as well as it does sell nice when it comes to flipping a gaming PC. So that wasn't too bad of a deal. Also considering all the other used GPUs on the shelves were really mediocre prices at best. They also did have an RTX 3060 Ti that wasn't too bad in price. But let's get on to the next deal that we got here. This was a Z170X Gaming 5 motherboard from Gigabyte. Now, just when I said in a recent video we did on the i7-7700 that I couldn't find any Z170s or Z270s as of late, one pops up for 3,300 yen roughly, which is around 22 USD, which is absolutely dirt cheap for a decent motherboard on the 6th and 7th gen Intel platform. But then beside that, they also had an X299 board where these motherboards, even still to this date, usually command a really high price. But here is where we managed to pick this up for under 10,000 yen, which is about 62 USD. So already I'm looking like for this budget gaming PC, it's looking like because there's a few good deals on motherboards, I'm going to let you guys decide at the end of the video which gaming PC route we should go with. Do we want to go with an X299 or a Z170? Or here's the next deal. This is the last deal that we got at DOS Para. Ryzen 5 2600 for 2,000 yen, which is like 13 USD. And this comes with a cooler as well. And the funny thing about Japan is they're really careful. And the guy at the counter is just extremely careful with a part this cheap. Like in Australia, if you're paying like $10 for a CPU, the person's just gonna guaranteed chuck that thing around and probably break it in the process. But in Japan, they're just extremely careful with a used part that's this cheap. And that's a good thing to see. I personally love it when used parts get handled with care. And also I checked out the pins before I bought it. All the pins were immaculate on this particular Ryzen 5 2600. So it's already looking like there is actually some really good deals on the used parts. Just the GPUs are looking pretty mediocre at this point in time, as I did see some 3060 Ti's, 3070s and other GPUs on the shelf that were looking a little bit over what I'm used to paying in Japan, and especially as time goes on. those RTX 3000 series GPUs and stuff, they should get a little bit cheaper. But anyhow, let's quickly go now to the next place called Junk Paradise, see what's going on with their GPU prices, as well as their motherboards and CPU prices. So with the graphics cards, the overall situation was looking like it was a complete bust. But then I looked at some of the motherboards, and here's where I came up lucky. And this is where we got an H570 Phantom Gaming, which they're asking 4,980 yen for, but we still got 10% off that. And so that brought it just under 30 USD for an H570. Now, H570 supports some of my favorite CPUs made by Intel. That's 10th gen CPUs, but also you can support 11th gen on this platform. And right now, at least on AliExpress, I do know off the top of my head that the 6-core 10400F as well as 11400F are going for really good prices. They've actually got a big save on at the moment. So it looks like we've just come up with another option there. But let's take a look at the next deal that we got, which is very off topic for Tech Yes City. This isn't a usual tech deal that I get. It's just that I saw this come up, and it's a capture card. This is the AverMedia GC553. Now, the thing about this capture card, if you guys ever have used capture cards before, you'll want to get a good one that doesn't cut out. Now, I've used so many different capture cards over the years. I've used Corsair, Elgato, HD60s, and their internal PCIe ones, as well as using different brands that promise good value. But the only one that's worked consistently without headaches and problems and cutting out is this AverMedia GC553 that I got when I got to Japan in 2022. And ever since then, this thing has not missed a beat. So I was like, well, why don't I get another one of these capture cards for Australia, where when I got back to Australia, I was just using another capture card, and then I also had a backup, and they were both just cutting out. And the funny thing is, that was over short USB cable runs too, with different USB cables. So in other words, it was the capture cards for sure that was doing the cutting out. And then the AverMedia, I've even got this thing running over a USB-C cable that I think is about 3 meters long. And it hasn't missed a beat, as I said before. So basically, in a nutshell, guys, if you're looking to get a capture card, save yourself headaches and just get an AverMedia one. However, with all that aside, we've still got one more store to visit here around this area in Chiba-city, Chiba Prefecture. That's right, Chiba-ken, Chiba-shi. And it's called PC Koubou. And there's actually one of these stores in Tokyo that I've been to before. I've actually picked up some used deals in a Tokyo parts hunt there. But this one, I've never been to the Chiba outlet. So we're gonna go check this out, only 10 minutes around the corner, and see what they have in stock. So we just stepped out of this store and I picked up one of the best X99 deals I think I've ever gotten so far in the history of this channel. This was a Taichi motherboard, X99 Taichi, and they had it on the shelves in the used parts section, and they're asking 4,300 yen. And I asked the guy, is this a mistake on the pricing? And he just said, no, we just want to sell it and get rid of it, and it works fine. So I checked the pins out and they all checked out fine. They included the IO shield, included all the original manuals and stuff. And that makes it around, I think, like $28 US for an X99 Taichi motherboard. So I'm just over the moon already, because if we look at the previous motherboard deals we've got now another option here for a budget gaming PC with X99. And always when it comes to budget used PCs, especially with the older platforms that have really good value CPUs on them, it's always the hardest thing to get a decent motherboard. And so this X99 motherboard is just incredible value at this price. But then I was also at this store checking out some other deals. We ended up seeing a brand new SSD for a 480 gigabyte, and that was going for around $25.50. And then also they had brand new motherboards where I sat there and I sort of scratched my head. I'm like, is this real, the price? They had A520s, and I know it's an A520, and I know people don't really like A520 that much in general, but it was going for just under 4,000 yen, which is around, I think, 26 USD. So 26 US dollars for a brand new A520 motherboard. I was like, well, I've got to get one of these at the very least and try it out with the Ryzen 5 2600. And I know people are going to say, well, it doesn't work, but here's the kicker. I've actually tried a Ryzen 5 2600 in the past, and it's worked absolutely fine on an A520 motherboard. So I'm going to give this one a gamble. If not, we can always pair it with a different CPU in the future. There's definitely going to be no money whatsoever lost here. In fact, I just think it's an incredible deal at this price. Now, in terms of the Ryzen 5 2600, this is looking like probably the best value combo because it's got the CPU cooler included. I know if I am going to look at CPUs online, I'm probably not going to get a cooler included on the used market. And looking at the CPUs at this place that we just got out of, this PC Koubou, the CPU prices were a bit of a bust. Same with the GPU prices as well. For instance, AliExpress has better deals on all the CPUs I saw in store here, especially the ones that are good for gaming, like a 10400F, for example. They're asking about 3,000 yen more than what I can get it delivered from AliExpress to my place for. So we're gonna give that a miss. Then the GPUs, they just really didn't have anything. But one really interesting thing was I went to look at some of the cases just to scope out who's got the budget value cases going around Japan. And it looks like a company called Zalman. I actually haven't even heard of their name in Australia for a very long time. I know back in the day they were pushing like these cool CPU coolers and stuff, but it looks like in Japan they're pretty, I guess, entry-level budget value gaming brand. So it looks like I'm probably gonna pair in this gaming budget setup here in a Zalman case. So I'm looking forward to picking out the cheapest Zalman case I can find here in Japan. Since I'm looking for used cases, there's none at any of these stores. I'm looking for used power supplies too. There's none of those available. And then there's no used CPU coolers either. So we may have to pay hard off a visit, see what they've got. But in terms of new power supplies too, one thing I've noticed in Japan is the prices of new power supplies are actually pretty expensive right now. Anyway guys, what we're gonna do right now is I'm gonna get back to my studio. It's getting a bit dark. I'm gonna get some dinner ready. And here we are now at the morning of day 3 of this parts hunt. It's been actually a little bit long because I went to Tokyo, wasn't that satisfied. Then we went around Chiba-city and we got some pretty good deals in yesterday of this day 3 adventure. But then we're just here tallying everything up here. I'm gonna put all the prices that we paid for all these deals up on the screen for you, as well as checking out the deals that came in from the online scores. And that was our RTX 2080 as well as our RTX 2060 Super. Now I did say earlier I got the 2080 for Niman, but it was actually Niman Nisengo Hakuen, so a little bit more expensive than I actually said before. But even at that price, still a very solid pickup. And then all our i7 5960Xs came through and they all look like they work absolutely fine. So I'm gonna put down this month's parts hunt, my favorite deal, as a combination, probably the X99 CPUs as well as the X99 motherboards. Very underrated at these prices, and I think, even though I asked you guys what budget build you're gonna wanna see with the motherboard and CPU combo, I'm thinking now that we've got this 5960X through and this X99 for the prices we paid, thinking like that's gonna be the build that we are going to go with, coupled in with most likely this 2080 right here. I think this is going to scream value for money, and it's gonna come in half the price of the whole system will come in at half the price of a 7800 X3D used. That's how crazy the market is right now. We're actually gonna jump over to the hot seat quickly, talk about prices and what I'm seeing in general here, as well as some of my recommendations going forward, because it is getting wild. And here we are now finishing off February 2025's used PC parts hunt of the month. And I gotta say, it's actually looking a lot more grim than I thought coming into it. I thought, okay, hopefully Japan's sort of insulated against what's going on in the US and Australia right now, where sort of GPU deals are drying up, but unfortunately not there. It's looking like the GPU deals, especially on the high end, and the CPUs too, all those deals are starting to dry up, and it's looking like there is actually this artificial shortage on gamers right now in terms of products available. And I do say artificial because I believe a lot of this is coming from this AI boom, because the crypto bros, that doesn't make any sense for the boom to come from them. I actually saw a video from a person I'm subscribed to, Krootman Tech. He's made this video where he, I think, delves in crypto still. And I talk to him on Twitter sometimes, very nice guy. And he's like, just sell your GPUs into this market. That's his advice for the crypto bros. And basically he's saying he doesn't understand why, because the crypto mining profits are abysmally bad right now, to the point where he doesn't see why people would be buying up GPUs for that side of things. So basically the demand is not coming from crypto. That means that the demand for all these products is coming from somewhere, because with TSMC, we all know that they're not scaling down production, they're actually ramping it up as much as they can. So there's more silicon being produced this year than there was the year before it and the year before that. And what we know with the RTX 5000 series launch was that there was, I know personally, there was roughly about half the actual stock on launch day as there was versus the RTX 4000 series launch. So overall, it's looking like these companies, and it's not just NVIDIA, it's definitely AMD too, they're prioritizing the AI business-to-business sector where there's more profits as opposed to gamers. So unfortunately, this is what it is at the moment, and me going into the used market, I'm now just thinking, well, could it get worse? And if it gets worse, then prices are going to keep going up. Though me personally, I'm just doing what I do best, and that is just looking for the best deals in the used market, especially comparing the prices in my head versus where they were before this apparent shortage, where especially before Christmas last year, prices were fine on the used market for GPUs, on the new market for GPUs, but now it seems like there's this crunch coming on, and it's very weird to say the least. And I mean, some of that may be due to inflation as well, but inflation has come down, especially versus the previous couple of years, even though it's still a problem to be concerned about, especially with these 2 to 3% targets from the central banks, and coupled in with the fact that economies of scale itself is looking like it's nowhere near as good as it was in the 2010 era, where scaling production meant lower costs, and also node advancements were much more apparent than they were now. It's looking like that side of things as well is a potential hazard. The easiest way to put it would be it cannot mask the inflation problems anymore, if that makes any sense. But at this point in time, that would definitely more so be a secondary concern as opposed to a primary concern, which would be the artificial shortage brought on by the fact that businesses are just prioritizing these AI customers and machine learning and all that business to business stuff. So that's where my bet is being placed in terms of why there's not enough products for gamers right now. And yeah, going forward, my best advice would be, if you see a good deal, whether it's on the used market or the new market, would probably just be to take it right now, because who knows how long this is going to go for. And I think the worst thing about all this is there's no real transparency from any of these tech companies. They're pretty much just saying, well, stock's gonna come back in soon and we've got MSRP models. That really doesn't help any people out there trying to buy, whether it's a new graphics card or trying to go to the used market and dealing with the higher prices. Anyhow, guys, with all that aside, I'm gonna keep the used banger deals and videos coming your way, so stay tuned for that, as well as we'll check out some of these new products when they launch, even though, again, I'm gonna be pushing these companies behind the scenes and asking them for more transparency here, because I'd love to know what they've got to say about this whole situation. But in due time, I will update you guys with what information I get as it comes. And with that aside, I hope you enjoyed this month's parts hunt. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, and also let us know in the comment section below what your favorite deal of this month was. Love reading your thoughts and opinions as always, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.